Hello, everybody, and welcome to EduMatch. Thank you so much for joining us. So, super excited today because we are going to be talking about using Unrolled picture books for shared reading. So, super excited to bring this conversation to you. So, thank you so much to Dave, who will be our moderator for today, for suggesting this topic. And we have with us two amazing panelists. So, we're going to start off with some brief introductions. So, Michelle, if we could start with you, if you could please introduce yourself to the EduMatch community.
Yes, my name is Michelle Burden. I teach third grade at Mertz Magnet School in Mobile, Alabama. And I've been doing using this strategy for about 3 years now.
All right, that's fantastic. Cool. Well, welcome to EduMatch. Thank you so much for being here, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. And next up, we have Donna. Welcome to EduMatch. If you could please just introduce yourself to our EduMatch viewers, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'm Donna Martin, and I teach third grade at Mertz Magnet School in Mobile, Alabama. And I've been using the strategy for about a year.
All right, that is awesome. So it is great to have you here on EduMatch. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, so last and not least, and we're going to bring it over to our moderator, Dave. If you could please unmute and introduce yourself, and we're excited to have you back here on EduMatch for a second time.
Well, try as we might, we're not going to get clean sound because my dog just woke up behind me. So I can't, Roxy will stay here unless I get her called out. So we'll see if she behaves herself. Hey, anyway, trying her best. So my name is Dave Middlebrook. I developed this work with using scrolls, and I run a website, textmapping.org. And I think I'd like to start. I'd say, first of all, to Donna and Michelle, thank you so much for showing up tonight. And more than that, thank you for being involved in this, for the time you've done to pick it up just off of Twitter and to take it and run with it in your classrooms. It's awesome. And you've been really doing some great work. So I'm really glad to have you here tonight. This is really about you most of the time. I'll just ask a few questions and let you talk. So how about, just for the heck of it, let's just start with Michelle and say, what do you like about using picture book scrolls for shared reading? Oh, let me back up and say, we were talking about picture books. And, you could arguably say that just a picture book is kind of like just for little kids, just pictures, right? But picture books can range all the way up to textbooks and trade books that kids are using at the 5th, 6th grade, 7th grade level, because in many cases, there are more pictures than text, or the balance is such that there's really substantial amount of graphic materials in there to help with understanding. So it's not just focused on, say, kindergarten or something, but
yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of very rich texts that are out there that tell beautiful, wonderful stories that we can use in our classroom, that engage students, that we can teach reading strategies and reading content through, and using this strategy, which was brought to me by a coworker at the time, a friend of mine who was following you, and y'all hooked up. I was able to implement this and learn some strategies with this to, bring it in my classroom and implement it with picture books and books that we already used, and then we just turned them into scrolls.
All right. Well, that's great. Let me ask you, so what do you like about using picture book scrolls for shared reading? What's cool about it?
I would have to say, one, where it depends on which direction you go with. But most of the time, I love it because you can see the whole entire text at the same time when the text is unrolled. So you're able to use the things that you see ahead of you, and the things that you see behind you to make connections with what's going on in the pictures that you're looking at currently, versus having to turn pages and reflect back through the actual turning of the page, because it's all laid out in front of you. So that to me is extremely beneficial. You can also see how authors and illustrators how they choose to lay out their illustrations and their text. And sometimes that can be extremely interesting and can cause some really good conversations to happen between your children and, you know, what they notice and what they see.
Okay. How about Donna? Can we ask you the same question? What do you like about using picture book scrolls for shared reading in your classroom?
Well, I'm going to kind of piggyback off what Michelle said, but one of the things that I really like about it is how the pictures, they can look at the pictures that can tell a story. So the pictures, the illustrations that the authors use actually tell the story. Because, of course, when we start out with it, the text is covered. And just to hear the conversations as they're walking through and they're looking, or they're doing a picture walk of the book, they can kind of figure out exactly what the story is going to be about and the sequence of the story.
Okay. I guess perhaps, Sarah, this might be a good time to show a few pictures of scrolls, and then we'll come back and talk some more. Were you able to get the Twitter feed for photos working?
Yes, I was. So here it is right now. I need to just remute.
Okay. Can I talk at this point or not?
Yes, you can talk.
Okay. Because the idea of a scroll is kind of hard for people to understand until you see it, then it's kind of obvious. It's very simple. You can see in all these pictures, the common thing is this: instead of being in book form, which is, the Roman Codex, it's a very old book form. This is an even older book form, the scroll. And, but it's really a beautiful book form to work with in the classroom, because you can see the whole thing, just like Donna and Michelle said in the beginning. Look at this picture right now, just where you are. If you could stop, you see that the little girls who are leaning over the text, all that engagement that comes with being able to go where they want in the story, rather than only two facing pages at a time. And that keeps everything present for conversations. So basically the idea is a scroll, a long strip of pages. And you make that by cutting books apart or making photocopies, whatever you is much better. And then they work on these scrolls. So I think that's probably a good enough introduction to what a scroll is. Pretty simple. And let's move on with another question for both of my panelists. Let me start with Donna and say, how are you using picture book scrolls in your classroom? Can you give us any examples of how you've used them?
Yes. Just recently we used a book it was called Ruby's Wish, and we used it for several different skills that we taught. We used it for cause and effect, and Michelle, you may have to help me with exactly what we used it for, because it's been a little while. But we used it for some different skills. What else do we use it for, Michelle?
We all problem and solution.
Yes, that was the main thing. So we used it. That was our main skill, was problem and solution. So we used it we kind of tracked. We did kind of a story mountain with it, where we tracked when the problem was introduced and kind of the rising action that led up to the problem getting solved, and then the falling action after that. And it was a great book to use, and kids could really see through the pictures and the text the problem and solution in that book. And then we kind of took it from there and realized, hey, we can do a whole lot with this. And we took it into cause and effect and even sequencing after that.
Can I just break in and ask you real quick to talk a little bit about how, let's say you were just doing this with a book, how would this be different? So the teachers who are watching this tonight, why on earth would they do this? Why wouldn't they just work with a book? So what's the scroll doing that's different for you? And I don't know if we could try this. Maybe Michelle can unmute her mic too, and the two of you can just kind of have a careful conversation, not stepping on each other's toes. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Okay,
Certainly.
there we go.
I guess I'll start. I would say that the most powerful thing in it is that you can have a larger number of children in the text versus having only seeing 2 pages of the text, where you have a larger number of children in the text because the text is laying out. Or in our case, like we have after we did the problem and solution activity with our kids, and we had gone in and done several days work with that, we had the scrolls hanging in the hall. And so then we took the learning out in the hall, and the children were able to use the scrolls hanging in the hall. And they were able to, go up to the text, move around, look for things where they might have been on, say, page 10 in the book. Their friend who was working on something else could have been on page 2, all where they were in the exact same book, but they weren't having to wait on each other to turn the pages to find what it was that they were looking for.
Yeah. Let me say also that one of the competing ideas here is that typically in shared reading, the teacher holds the book and the students sit, and the teacher will hold the book up and read a little bit and then turn it around and show it, right? And you kind of pan it around so the kids can see it. Well, the kids over to the left get a good look, but as you're moving around to get to the kids to your right, the kids to the left still don't want to move. They want you to come back so they can look more. Or some of them want to see ahead sooner. They're bored. They've already seen that. Well, there's no agency for the kids when the teacher's holding the book. They're not driving the reading bus. So I think it's one of the very important benefits of the scroll is just like you said, they're all in there, and they're having these conversations. They're asking questions back and forth, and they're saying, "What I see? What do you see down there? Well, I see up here something." And it looks kind of chaotic, but it's very cool. So I don't know, yeah, go ahead, Michelle. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would have to say, and I think Donna muted her mic, but I would have to say that the engagement level is much higher when in the use of a scroll, because the kids are very excited. And matter of fact, today, one of our kindergarten teachers had her entire kindergarten children in the lobby of the school with her scroll laid out. So there was enough room for them to access the scroll. And my children were so excited for the kindergarten children because they were text mapping, and they love it that much that they were excited for the kindergartners to be a part of that experience.
And I think so. I think as well, probably the engagement part has been the most eye-opening for me, is to see the whole class engaged in that book versus just reading a book to them, and some of them sitting there playing with their shoes or, twiddling their thumbs or whatever, that they're all taking part in that book at the same time, and that they're able to notice details that they can't see when they're sitting on the carpet and you're just reading a book to them.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. Let me see the next question if we move on. How have picture book scrolls, how have scrolls changed your teaching? Donna, why don't you just go ahead and share your thinking there?
Well, I think one way it's changed my thinking is letting students, like you said, let them drive that reading bus. Because when you release that control to them and you let them be in charge, the conversations and the questions that they ask are amazing. And I can see how when we're reading to them or we're showing a book to them that we're kind of driving the bus at that point. So I've just been amazed at how much our kids take ownership of what they're doing and the questions that come up as they're reading.
I would have to agree with that, and that I think that it has put like them given release of control where they have more power and making like predictions and searching for and looking for answers in their thought process, which again gets them back. It's more of an engaging opportunity, and they love being able to write. They love being able to write on we normally mount it on a piece of paper that can then be written on behind the text, so that then they're able to put their thoughts and track their thinking. We call it TYT, tracking your thoughts. And they really enjoy seeing where they've asked a question and we find the answer, or they have a connection and other people share in that connection.
That's very cool. I be aware of the time. We started a little late. So let's move on to that last question. I do hate to rush you guys so much because you've done a lot of work and we're barely letting you break into this. Maybe we'll do another one sometime. But what's a good first lesson for getting started with picture book scrolls for teachers? What would you recommend? Just how do you get your feet wet without being too stressed out on this? It doesn't, what's a nice simple step so they can begin to experience using scrolls? Where would you start, or where did you start if that was the, would you go would you start the way you started, or would you recommend something else having done it?
I think the way I started was you just have to jump in.
Okay,
and
Donna.
I think am I okay?
Yes.
Okay. I think you just have to jump in and try it and realize that there's not a right or a wrong way. I think we learn, you do your first one and then you learn, hey, this worked, or maybe I need to try something different. I was lucky that in my first one, it worked really well, and the kids were engaged from start to finish. So I really think you just need to jump in and try.
That sounds good. Michelle?
I would suggest choosing an author, someone that you are familiar with, that you love, something a piece that you would love to share with your children, and one that be mindful of the length, because you don't, that would be my two first pointers. Go with someone you love that has beautiful illustrations. And that, like Donna said, the illustrations alone tell the story. And then just be mindful of the length so that you don't feel overwhelmed, because, sometimes you feel like you've run out of real estate in your classroom.
Oh, yeah. That's because you have. Yeah, that happens. So what do you say, Sarah? Do we need to close out here, or can I ask another question, or what do you think?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we'll have to wrap it up, but we did have a viewer question, so I wanted to definitely throw this out. So Brittany Lee, thank you so much for joining us on YouTube Live. She says she's doing her first scroll tomorrow. She wants to know if y'all have any pointers for nonfiction books, and she's excited to see the engagement that will take place in her classroom. So any tips for Brittany?
I can answer, or you folks can answer. What do you think? Michelle or Donna?
Go ahead, Donna.
I think with the nonfiction text, I do a lot with nonfiction. That again, you can still do the picture walk, but you're doing more of like a text feature walk, where they're starting to notice what the author, how the authors organize the text, and what kind of text features you're looking at, because even text features can help tell what's going to happen in that book.
Absolutely. I completely agree with Donna. Nonfiction is more about like digging into the text features and what you're getting from that, so that then you can make sense of what the story's gonna, what the story is about.
I would recommend that you have your kids start by boxing out all the illustrations, sidebars, graphs, charts, anything like that. Anything that's not part of the mainstream of the text that runs through the entire scroll. Then focus on those things, talk about them, because your kids often don't really know. They don't have a lot of formal education into previewing these items, and they're very important, a rich source for inferences, questions, connections, all kinds of things. So definitely have them focus on that. Don't dive into the text. Take your time. And then once you really beat that one down to the ground, you've really run it out, you've done as much work as you can, then start on the text structure for the text itself and start looking at headings and subheadings, that kind of thing. I think you'll find that the text will be much richer for them after they've worked the illustrations and all the other ancillary materials that come with it. That can be a really fun way to do it. So that would be my recommendation. And thank you for asking.
Thank you. Those were fantastic recommendations, and I really enjoyed hearing about this strategy of using the unrolled picture books, the scrolls, for the shared reading. So I wanted to also say hi to Michelle D.A., who is tuning in on YouTube Live as well. So awesome, awesome. Wanted to thank our panelists, Michelle and Donna, and our moderator, Dave. You all really brought that fire tonight. I learned so much from all of you, and I can't wait to put this out as an audio podcast as well as a replay on Facebook. So excellent. So we will have that within the next few weeks. Thank you. Definitely looking forward to getting the word out about this great strategy so that more of our colleagues can start to implement it. So awesome. So wanted to thank everybody again for watching with us, and people who will be watching in the future. Thank you in the future. This Sunday, we will be back for our tweet and talk. Our Twitter chat will be going on. Stay tuned. Podcast with an s.edumatch.org/tweet talk, and on Twitter with the hashtag EduMatch. So everyone have a fantastic rest of your week, and see you all Sunday.
Thank you.